The Raheem Morris defensive revolution. The 49ers will not stop adding long linebackers. They just signed another one, but we go back to the NFL draft. Jaden Duggar, wingspan of over 84 inches, over 7 feet. That is NBA center territory for Jaden Duggar, the 49ers' fifth-round pick out of Louisiana. Wingspan that is longer than Aldon Smith's. We usually only talk about edge rushers and tackles having a wingspan as long as Jaden Duggar's. 49ers also drafted Ephesians Prysock, the cornerback out of the University of Washington, who has a wingspan of over 80 inches, a cornerback who is nearly 6'4", so intense length at that position. You could see the length of Prysock's arms at the 49ers rookie minicamp. That event also featured Larry Worth III. He was there on a tryout basis, and now the 49ers have added the hybrid defender to their roster. They released Milo Eifler, linebacker, and signed Larry Worth, who technically worked out for the 49ers as a linebacker, but he played safety at Arkansas during college. Now, Trey Greenlaw also came from the University of Arkansas, so the 49ers have a nice little linebacker pipeline there. But when we talk about Larry Worth, this is somebody who has an arm length of over 33 inches, which again is very, very long, especially for the linebacker position. And I think that it's probably time to stop categorizing safeties and linebackers individually. I think it's probably going to be smart to look at them holistically, because that is exactly what Raheem Morris, the 49ers' new defensive coordinator, is doing.
These guys are getting, they're harder to defend. Just the coordinators in this league, like, let's not kid ourselves. People want to see offense. The rules have changed in different ways for you to do different things. So you got to have some multiplicity in your front. You got to have multiplicity in the back end. You got to be able to do different things. You like to be able to do those things when you decide to do those things and use them as terms where you can, dictate, so to speak. But, we have been a four-down rush team, and we've done a nice job in it. I know we've dibbled and dabbled a little bit last year, even with Robert Saleh, which I have so much respect for, and what he was able to do and how we did it. But, I was able to accumulate and acquire a bunch of different ideas and thoughts along my stops with the different people that I work with, whether it's been Jim Haslett in Washington, where they were strictly a 3-4 base Pittsburgh team, or really being able to do some of the different things that we did last year, being able to mix it up, being able to play some 4-down stuff, being able to play a bunch of 5-down stuff. So, I think you got to be able to move around and kind of move those chess pieces to be able to help you go out there and really do your best to stop these really explosive offenses.
Multiplicity, or adaptability, or versatility. That is how Raheem Morris intends to combat these new age NFL offenses, which have become very, very adaptable over recent seasons. 49ers with Kyle Shanahan are example A. But Raheem Morris with his defenses, and we've seen it most recently in Atlanta. Look at a player like Jalen Walker, picked in last year's first round. It's a team that really, really loves roving defenders. And I think that the 49ers have set themselves up to rove in between the linebacker and the safety positions. And, philosophically, Raheem Morris works with the 49ers because this is something San Francisco has already long emphasized at the linebacker position. They've had the best linebacker core in the entire league in the Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch era. Obviously goes back to Fred Warner being drafted out of BYU in the third round of the 2018 draft. And just look, 49ers defenders with backgrounds at linebacker and safety / defensive back. Warner, Dre Greenlaw, Arkansas product, just like Larry Worth III. Dre Greenlaw played some strong safety, then moved over to linebacker. Luke Gifford, a safety before he moved to linebacker. Of course, Jaden Duggar, a safety at Georgetown before he moved to edge rusher and a jack linebacker, outside linebacker position first before moving into inside linebacker. And Jalen Graham, a safety who turned into a linebacker for the 49ers. Speaking first of Jaden Duggar, since I think he represents this to a T, given the insane arm length, given the physical tools, given the fact that he's played 3 markedly different positions in 3 years, from safety to that edge rusher spot to the inside linebacker spot. Let's listen in to how he views those three positions.
You've played in three really different positions in 3 seasons, from safety to kind of the edge there, outside linebacker to inside linebacker. Which has been your favorite?
I'll definitely say linebacker. I mean, I liked all of them, but I feel like linebacker was a mesh of all of them. I mean, I got to use, I feel like I got to use my whole skill set at linebacker. So I got to rush like a edge when I blitz. I got to cover sometimes like a safety. So it was a mixture of everything.
So I see that Jaden Duggar being a true joker for Raheem Morris and the 49ers. And by joker, I mean somebody that's lined up all over the place. Mike actually believes that he's going to end up as a full-time edge rusher, just given the arm length. As soon as he figures out how to use that prodigious arm length. Again, longer wingspan than Aldon Smith's. Thinks he could end up working against tackles. The thing about Jaden Duggar is that the 49ers, and I think a lot of teams believe this based on the scouting reports, he sees the ball and he gets the ball. He has good inside linebacker instincts, which is why he ultimately found his way to that position. And who's to say that he can't execute some edge rusher duties from an inside linebacker position, because you could always move guys around on the defensive side of the ball. We already know that linebackers and safeties have a lot of interchangeability due to the coverage demands of the modern game. Running backs, tight ends are going to be moving out of the backfield, slot receivers. Linebackers are often going to be asked to cover them. You see this explosion in 13 personnel, which means 3 tight ends, means the linebackers are going to be pressed into coverage more and more often. So obviously Jaden Duggar with the 4.6 40, the safety background, is somebody that we can see playing a safety-like role for the 49ers, coming from an inside linebacker position. But it is that edge rushing background and the arm length that make things extremely, extremely interesting. We have to look at Larry Worth in a similar fashion. Worth is 6'4" and only 220, so he's a bit lighter than Jaden Duggar, who's a bit 240 pounds, but he still has the long arms, not as long as Duggar's. He's over 33-inch arm length, though, so he should be able to cover. He's got good burst. I mean, he's at 4.6 40, so he's not a blazing fast, pure center field safety, but we're talking about these adaptable hybrid players starting from the box, moving backwards. We talked about Nicky Manwuri for the Seattle Seahawks, helping change that defense last year. Well, the 49ers are now collecting a bunch of players with hybrid adaptability for Raheem Morris's defense. Larry Worth registered 11 feet 2 inches on the broad jump. That equals Sonny Styles. Yes, the number 7 overall pick to the Washington Commanders. One of the most athletic linebacker prospects that we've seen in a while, Sonny Styles. That's where Larry Worth is with his broad jump. So he's got that straight line explosion that you really like. I think that the reason that Worth went undrafted is primarily because of the lateral movement ability that is not the same as somebody like Sonny Styles, but the 49ers obviously believe that they have traits that they can work with here, and they have potential value that they can work with. Now, some were wondering why the 49ers signed Larry Worth to a 3-year deal, and that's simple. It's because they had to sign him to a 3-year deal. Any undrafted rookie in the NFL gets a 3-year contract when they enter the league. The 49ers had a veteran named Milo Eifler as a linebacker, and he was on a simple veteran 1-year contract for San Francisco. Teams are essentially incentivized to sign these rookies instead of these veterans, because the rookies, you get an automatic 3-year deal, and a team wants a longer deal because that is more team control. There's nothing guaranteed in this contract for Larry Worth, so the 49ers can let him go whenever they want at no cost. But if he ends up being a good player, if he ends up making the 53-man roster, then they can keep him under his 3-year contract, and that is a potential bargain with no downside for the 49ers. So they did not give Larry Worth a 3-year contract because they think he's going to make this team. They gave him a 3-year contract because they have to, because the rules incentivize it, and they found somebody in their tryout during rookie minicamp that they believe at least deserves a spot on this 90-man roster. But what the 49ers are doing, and this goes beyond Raheem Morris, and Morris, I think, helps drill this down. Morris helps make this even more of an emphasis, but I think that this has obviously been going around since the time of Fred Warner joining the team. Warner, a former DB at BYU with 33-inch arms, somebody who's become the best defender in the NFL with a truly hybrid style, the 49ers are making sure that they become more and more adaptable in that back seven. Hell, they're becoming more and more adaptable up front. You see it with Romello Height, right? You see it with the 3-4 or the 5-man fronts that Raheem Morris wants to bring to the table. When he talked about multiplicity in that earlier quote, a lot of that, I think, answer came via a question that pertained to Romello Height, the 49ers edge rusher picked at number 70. He's got drop back outside linebacker capabilities to get back into coverage, to create some level of confusion upon opposing offenses from the 49ers defense. And the 49ers are going to be doing more of that than they did when they ran a straight 4-3. Raheem Morris will be able to bring that multiplicity to the table, but it extends beyond just the defensive line and also to the linebacker and safety positions, probably at a greater level than in the past, just given what we have seen from Raheem Morris as a defensive coordinator. Remember, this is a league of connections and experience. And Raheem Morris, former safety at Hofstra, and then an assistant with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers under Monty Kiffin before he held a bunch of different roles in the NFL. He has a primarily DB background. You want to talk about connections? He was in the same room as a very young coach as John Lynch with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Morris was an assistant DB coach. Lynch was still a player. If you guys want to get crazy down the connection rabbit hole, in 2008, Lynch played for the Denver Broncos. Mike Shanahan was the coach, and the wide receivers coach of the Denver Broncos was Jed Fish. Jed Fish was the college coach at two different colleges of Ephesians Prysock, who transferred from Arizona to Washington and now has been drafted by the 49ers. Jed Fish also hired Jake Lynch, John Lynch's son, to be a graduate assistant at the University of Washington in 2024. And Jake Lynch cut up tape for the DBs, including Ephesians Prysock at Washington. Anyway, I can go way down this rabbit hole of connections, but football is a small world, and Raheem Morris has been very good with DBs. Raheem Morris has been at a bunch of different places. He understands the importance of schematic variants, and you can tell that the way that the 49ers have drafted, that schematic variance is of utmost importance to them moving forward at all three levels of their defense. From Romello Height, schematic variance up front with the fronts, to the linebacker level, obviously, Jaden Duggar, now somebody like Larry Worth with that linebacker safety versatility. And Ephesians Prysock, well, I think he could play multiple positions. You could probably, Dante Whitner even said he hopes that he ultimately plays safety. I think it's too early to say something like that. The guy was a developing cornerback in college, but as a tall corner, you could do multiple different things with Ephesians Prysock. He tackled really well. He improved as a tackler his last year at the University of Washington. Somebody dedicated to film study and part of the three very long back seven defenders whom the 49ers have added here in recent days. So congratulations to Larry Worth. Moves from a 49ers tryout to a 49ers contract, and that 90-man roster is shaping up fast for San Francisco.